Graft is really the culmination of the influences and adventures and careers I've been in and the mentors I've had throughout my life. When I was 13 years old, in 1990, I won a competition at a Young Entrepreneurs program in UC Berkeley, where we created a business model and we did a pitch to investors. The outcome of that is I won $500 investment into my mini business when I was about 13 years old. And I wanted to design bikes. I was racing mountain bikes at the time. I wanted a better bike. I wanted a bike that was as good as what the pros had. And so with that $500, I went to buy CAD software, CAD software. So shortly after I completed the design in the CAD, and I quickly enrolled in community college, Laney College in Oakland, California. And I started learning welding and CNC classes so that I could build the thing I wanted to design. Fortunately, at Laney, I also won a scholarship there that allowed me to buy some milling machine. And I quickly got to work trying to put together this design that I'd come up with. Later in my career, obviously, I was working in the Detroit area, doing mass production, CNC machining on a very large scale. And that experience has really made me quite familiar and comfortable with the benefits, but also the limitations of CNC manufacturing, but also manufacturing at scale. From there, I transitioned to Washington, DC and got a job at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center, where I was working on a variety of projects. The project I felt the most involved in and maybe the most excited about was called the Solar Dynamics Observatory. For that project, me and my team, we led the construction of the chassis or the frame of the satellite, which was built out of carbon fiber. And I'm really proud of this one because this is one of the few projects that's public. And so we can see the images online from the SDO satellites. And so one of the great things that I was able to take away from that experience is kind of the contrast between the automotive industry, where you're doing things relatively fast, but at a good level, and the aerospace industry, where you're doing things ultra slow, but at the highest level. And I was able to kind of pick and choose where I wanted to use those different techniques and skills that I learned. And here at Graft, for instance, we use titanium bolts that are titanium nitride coated for low friction during torquing so that we get very accurate torque numbers. After joining Tesla in 2007, I'd worked in the automotive industry in the Detroit area, was used to working with tier 1 OEM companies, thousands of engineers, full respect from the supply chain, and really a fully captive supply chain. When I got to Tesla, things couldn't be more different. The automotive suppliers that I was familiar working with were not at all interested in working with Tesla. They didn't consider Tesla at that time to be a car company with just 100 people, and also considering the fact they're building basically the world's first mass market electric cars. As I transitioned here to Taiwan from the US, co-founded Zing Mobility, I was lucky enough to be able to design my first car from scratch. So we designed the car we call Miss G from a clean sheet design. This was a gasoline car. And this was the first time I was really able to leverage my design background, my supplier background, my manufacturing background, along with this location here in Taiwan to develop a complete vehicle. Zing Mobility really took up that mantle of building high quality, low volume battery packs and leveraging the supply chain here in Taiwan to do it in a world-class way. So not only did we develop world-class batteries at Zing, we also developed our own patented technology of immersion cooling for batteries. This was a novel and unique cooling method in which we would pump fluid through the batteries. We also designed a modular battery that could be stacked up like Legos. And so I was quite proud to develop and have been granted several patents on this technology. And through that, I was able to kind of refine our initial battery designs at Zing Mobility. And now here at Graft, it's the culmination of all of those experiences that allows me to build these world-class electric vehicles, ultra lightweight, typically half the weight of gasoline vehicles, with very high power output and great reliability. Ever since I was in junior high school, I started racing mountain bikes, and that eventually led to racing at a national level for a couple years. Once I transitioned to college, I was really fortunate being at University of Michigan to do amateur racing against guys that I later realized were the designers of some of the cars that I loved and even the cars that I drove. And so being someone who was in engineering school and actually racing and being friends with the guys I wanted to work with was really a treat and drove me forward kind of in my engineering and design field. I began making my own parts and accessories for my race car, which allowed me to kind of keep pace on track because I had some special components they didn't have. I was really fortunate to be in that environment where not only was I doing amateur racing, but I was rubbing shoulders with some professional drivers and professional engineers at the same time. Later in my career, I switched to off-road racing. And so I competed in the Baja 1000 and the Baja series, which as an engineer was also a really good treat because it's really, really rough racing. For 4 or 5 years, the team I raced with, we went through a variety of different vehicles, successes and failures. And every failure to me was intriguing as an engineer to understand how these components failed, how the components could stay together. And spending, 6, 8 hours, 12 hours in the car racing through the night down the Baja Peninsula is something that will always stay with me.